It's time to look at team building and rotations with Huang, also known as Mimi. Let's dig deep into team comps, explore potential alternatives, Titan and Relic optimization, and then compare the strength of the teams to each other and the rest of the meta. We'll start out with the Fiona Vault team, using Mimi, Fiona, and Relics. As we saw from part 1, the strongest 3 matrices to run here are their respective matrices. We use Wellspring and Hydro Focus, with Fiona's traits. If you do not meet the HP requirement for Wellspring, Torrential Force works as well. For Titan stats, normal and skill damage are very close, with a slight edge to skill damage with optimized relic usage. Weak Point is the strongest option in content where it works. For relics, the optimal choices are Overdrive Shot and Coolant 2. Overdrive Shot provides a unique damage mod and can be optimized to cover nearly the whole rotation. Coolant 2 is preferred over Omnium Shield as it can be synced up better with burst windows. Because Relics is only used for buffing on this team, there are several viable alternative choices. On a comparison without matrices, Fenrir's Resistance Shred makes her stronger versus content with Resist, and even running an altered comp with Lyn can offer more than Relics with buffs and supplementary opio damage and a stronger resonance effect. Running A5 or higher Claudia can also work fairly well due to the skill damage having huge value. However, when you do consider Relics' 4-piece matrix, it makes Relics stronger than the other choices here. Now, let's look into the rotation. Start out with Fiona's Discharge and skill, followed by that of Relics, while using Coolant to prepare for the burst window. Dodge cancel Relics' skill to proc feedback under A1, and then swap to Mimi and drop both charges of her skill, making sure to pop Overdrive Shot after the first charge, as to not waste 2 charges right off the bat. Use Mimi's hold attack until Coolant has just a few seconds left on its cooldown, and then repeat the rotation. Make sure to never use Mimi's skill off cooldown, as that will waste your Overdrive Shot charges. You won't actually lose any casts, and can double tap it on the 5th rotation where you use your last charge anyway. Let's see an iteration of the rotation loop. Next, let's take a look at the Triple Vote team. This uses Mimi, Relics, and Fenrir with their respective matrix sets. We use Mimi's traits here. For Titan stats, skill damage is the preferred stat, with general damage boost as a secondary option. In terms of relics, we use Coolant 2 and Omnium Shield here. Overdrive Shot isn't useful for this comp, as we need to swap constantly due to Relics' skill having extremely high value with Fenrir A3. If you get the Lassic Heart A3, you can use that over Omnium Shield. There really aren't too many good substitutes for a Triple Vote team, as Relics and Fenrir work very well together. You could replace Relics with Tianlan, as Fenrir's dot would still work to consume his charges. But remember that these comparisons are without matrix values, so Rubilia with her 4-piece would be that much stronger. While a triple volt team is the place for Crow to work, he doesn't really pull weight as good as Rubilia and Fenrir do. However, replacing Fenrir with Crow is better theoretically than replacing Fenrir with Tianlan, funnily enough. It's rotation time! The timing of skills in this comp is quite awkward, so instead of understanding a static rotation, it's best to know the general priorities. Use one Mimi skill charge at the beginning to proc her A6. Use Mimi skill charges under Kuon, but Kuons should be prioritized to cover Rubilia skill windows, so hold Mimi charges as necessary. Make sure Fenrir's Sun World is up at all times. Use Rubilia's skill off cooldown, and use Mimi's hold attack to fill downtime. Let's take a look at how that would be played. Start out using Mimi's hold attack for a brief moment to generate a few initial stacks, before using her skill while using cooldown. Switch to Fenrir, use her skill, and then discharge to Rubilia, use her skill, and drop shield, dodge cancelling with 1 charge of feedback while you're at it. Switch back to Mimi, use her skill again, and then use her hold attack for roughly 11 seconds, before discharging to Rubilia and using her skill and feedback again. Switch to Fenrir, using her A1 to dodge attack to proc her dot, while waiting for her skill to come off cooldown. Then use her skill again and switch back to Mimi. Use her hold attack for a few seconds, then discharge to Rubilia and use her skill and dodge. You should get the idea by now. Here's a bit more footage to see more of how it's played. Lastly, let's look at a rainbow team. Here, we'll use Mimi, Fiona, and Zeke. For matrices, we'll run Mimi, Fiona, and Rubilia. Note that since Rubilia isn't actually in this comp, Rubilia's matrix doesn't get the extra thorn, so the value is weaker, so it doesn't hurt too much to use alternative options like Fenrir, or put a main DPS set like Samir Lyra on Mimi. We'll use Fenrir's trait here, and use Wellspring and Maelstrom as our Fiona skills. For Titan stacks, it's the same as the Fiona Volt comp. Skill and normal attack damage are fairly close, with an edge to skill damage. Relics are also the same as Fiona Volt. Overdrive Shot and Quant 2 are ideal. Start out with Zeke's skill and Quant, and then dodge attack to apply a snake bite. Discharge to Fiona and use her skill, and then switch to Mimi. Use Mimi's skills, popping Overdrive Shot after the first charge. Sound familiar? It should, because this plays out the exact same as the Fiona Vote comp, except with Zeke thrown in the mix instead of Rubilia. Use Mimi's hold attack until Kuon is off cooldown. Let's look at the rotation in action. That's it for the team comp section. How strong are all these teams? Let's take a closer look. Hi! With Mimi's release, I've spent many hours adding and optimizing relic usage in the calculator. It's not perfect, but it's a work in progress. Relic usage can bend certain comps to be stronger than others, or shift damage distributions to be more in favor of one source or another. So it's important to consider the implications of optimally used relics. With that in mind, let's dive in, keeping a note that at the end of the day, this is theory crafting and should be taken with a grain of salt. Let's start out with the different Mimi comps. Without resistance, the Mimi comps are all fairly similar in base damage, with a slight edge to the Rainbow comp. However, when resistance is in play, the Triple Volt Mimi comp is theoretically a decent amount stronger than the other teams. But this is also the comp with the wackiest excuse for a rotation that will lose the most when not executed to perfection. Not having Fiona also makes it vulnerable to grain bite and delay, on top of the comp not having any innate sustain. The Fiona and Zeke comps, additionally, benefit more from Titan stats than the Triple Volt comp, which can push them even further. How about compared to everything else? We'll start out with a maximum investment comp. With relics in play, this table might look a bit different than what you remembered from last analysis. Mimi comps, theoretically, are weaker than the Zeke physical comp, though there can be slightly different results in practice, as this doesn't count Relic A4 bonuses. But that being said, this definitely isn't the power creep we're used to. In the Dolphin comp, with 6-star characters, no limited matrices, and A2 Coolant 2 and A1 Overdrive Shot or A5 Omnium Shield, the Fiona Mimi team kinda falls flat due to its reliance on powerful limited matrices. The gap between Triple Volt and the Zeke comp is more pronounced, but again, remember that the max damage of the Triple Volt comp is hard to realize in real content. With A3 characters, the story is pretty much the same. I'll save myself the editing and slap that crap on here. Finally, let's look at the F2P investment level, with A1 characters, 0-star matrices, as well as only F2P relics. Here, the Zeke comp is the most powerful, but all the Mimi comps are much weaker than the other V3 F2P comps. And that's not only because Mimi's advancements are substantial, but also those of Rubilia. If you replace an A1 Rubilia with, say, A5 Claudia, you'll gain a sizable amount of damage, despite breaking resonance. TLDR Summary. Mimi's various teams at the maximum investment come very close to each other in terms of DPS. Although the Triple Volt team on paper has the most power in content with resistance, the rotation is awkward and survivability is low. Titan stats are important, and comps that focus on Mimi main DPS can utilize Titan stats much better, which make them stronger in practice. And that concludes my Mimi analysis. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'll try to get to as many as I can. Also, shameless self-plug. I have merch now! If you're interested in getting any of these super cute items for yourself, check the link in the description. I'll see you guys next time!